Good afternoon, sir.
या गुड आफ्टरनून आलोक।
सर आवाज आ रही है?
अभी तो लोग ज्वाइन कर रहे हैं, थोड़ा 5-7 मिनट लगेगा क्यों?
जी सर, ओके।
हाँ, बता देना आप मेरे को, सारे लोग आ जाते हैं। ठीक है। Previous lecture, what we have discussed last week, that will be better. Okay. So, are everyone is listening me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's good. Thank you. So, you know that today we'll discuss about the stages of parturition. And before that, you know that last week we have discussed about the hormonal control of parturition. You know that we have discussed so many things stepwise, like how this first initiation of parturition starts and how different hormonal cascades takes place, and finally there is expulsion of fetus. So you know that we have initiated that this hormonal control is initiated by the stress on the fetus, that maybe stress may be developed by any means, either the physical factors or this biochemical factor or neuroendocrine factor, and this stress is responsible for the secretion act upon the fetal hypothalamus, and the fetal hypothalamus secretes CRF, corticotrophin releasing factor, isn't it? And this CRF again acts on the fetal pituitary, which secretes the ACTH, and further which acts on the fetal adrenal, and this fetal adrenal secretes cortisol. And you know that this ACTH and cortisol, both these hormones are responsible for the fetal maturation. Further, this cortisol acts upon the placenta and secretes estradiol. And this estradiol also again acts upon the uterine myometrium, further which produces the prostaglandin. And this prostaglandin is responsible for luteolysis. Also, this prostaglandin along with estradiol and cortisol, this is also responsible for relaxation of sacrosciatic ligament and perineal ligament. So this type of things happen, and this prostaglandin, which is secreted from the myometrium, this is responsible for luteolysis, and further this is responsible for the increasing the myometrial excitability by lowering the progesterone level. And by increasing the myometrial excitability, this is responsible for the myometrial contraction. And once myometrial contraction happens, this leads to expulsion of the fetus. Now, the process of expulsion of the fetus initiated by this way. And once this process of expulsion occur, and when during this very process, when feet of the fetus touches to the vagina and the cervix, this causes establishment of a reflex that known as, yeah, what is that name? That reflex, can you name? If remember,
Ferguson.
anyone? Ferguson reflex.
Ferguson reflex. Sir.
Fergus reflex.
Very good. Very good. Very good. Well, so I am happy that you people are remembering these things. Very good. So this is responsible for development of the Ferguson reflex. And this, because of the Ferguson reflex, this reflex generates, this acts upon the posterior pituitary of the this fetus. Again, this is responsible for the posterior pituitary of the dam also, and this causes a release of oxytocin. And because of this oxytocin, again there is a stronger contraction, myometrial contraction, and there will be again a more severe expulsive force on the fetus by the myometrial contraction, and further this will lead to the parturition. So this was in summary how the hormonal control initiated and how the expulsion of the fetus occurs. So this was in short. Now today we'll discuss about the stages of parturition. What are the different stages of parturition? When we talk about stages of parturition, is slides visible? Is this slides visible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. So generally when we talk about stages of parturition never occurs in stages, because it's a continuous process. We can't divide in stages, but for our ease, for our convenience of study, we can easily divide the whole process of parturition in 3 different stages. Stage 1, 2, and 3. What is stage 1? If you see, first stage is initiation of myometrial contraction and cervicalization. Second stage is abdominal contraction and fetal expulsion. And third is expulsion of fetal membrane and involution of uterus. What's happened, if you see so many textbooks, this is in third stage, this is only written expulsion of fetal membrane. In few of the textbooks, this is also written that involution of uterus also. Why? Because as soon as the expulsion of fetus, involution, process of involution initiated. So within 2 days, whatever the period of expulsion of fetal membrane, there is some sort of uterine involution, some degree of uterine involution. That's why third stage is having considered both the things, that is fetal membrane, expulsion of fetal membrane as well as involution of uterus. So we'll discuss every stage one by one. So we'll start from first stage. And before that, what are the preparatory changes? That if you remember, we have discussed science of parturition in the very first lecture. So that is the preparatory changes. means whatever the changes that is visible in the dam 48 to 72 hours prior to calving. So if you have seen a dam which is going to parturiate, you can easily observe that there is a relaxation of sacrosciatic ligament. Means what is relaxation? Means if you see the base of the tail, it appears raised, little raised, because of sunken gluteal muscles and relaxed pelvic ligament. So if you compare from the normal animal, it will be found that it will be the base of the tail will be slightly raised, and that is known as relaxation of sacrosciatic ligament. And similar type of condition, if you see a disease condition, I can mention here that Buller's syndrome. This particularly in this cystic ovarian condition might be particularly the follicular cyst. Such type of symptoms is also visible in that condition. But there you will not find softening of the sacrosciatic ligament. Certainly the base of the tail might be raised. So that is a different condition that should not be mentioned here. That is, there should not be any comparison of that particular condition. So this is relaxation of sacrosciatic ligament. Another thing is cloudy white discharge from the vulva and vagina. Before parturition, before initiation of parturition, what's happened? There is a liquefaction of cervical seal, and you'll find that whitish, cloudy, serosanguinous discharge, particularly whitish and creamish discharge, will be visible, and that is because of liquefaction of the cervical seal. Then comes udder enlargement. There will be enlargement of the udder and teeth also, swelling of the teeth also. This is because of teeth engorgement, means there will be a bit accumulation of cholesterol in the udder and the teeth. And heifers sometimes develop subcutaneous edema in the front region behind the udder, means from the udder to the just behind the forelimbs, a whole ventral portion of the abdomen. Sometimes you will see heifers may develop edema just before the calving, but after 15 or 20 days after the calving, all edema will be subsided. That is a normal process that many times that is being noted in case of heifers. Now, what are the changes that will be visible in the vulva? You'll find that vulva seems to be slightly tummified and edematous. 2 to 3 times there will be swelling in the vulva, and also you will find that slightly increase in the vulvar length. If you see the vulvar length, there will be slight increase, and that will be helpful in facilitating the birth of the calf. Now come to the first stage. What actually the first stage of the calving is? So the first stage is that if you see the very first stage, you will find that in the beginning of the first stage, if you see the picture, left hand side top picture, cervix remain closed. Cervix remain closed in the beginning of the first stage of the parturition. And whatever the changes you will find during the first stage, that remains invisible externally. Externally, you will not find any change, means animal is either restraining or any visible sign, you will not find much changes externally. So what's happened during this very period, there will be preparation of birth canal for the delivery of the fetus. Birth canal prepare herself, there will be loosening in the birth canal. It's become flaccid, so that will provide entry of the fetus from the abdominal portion towards the pelvic portion. And there will be some structural changes in the cervix also. There will be softening of the cervix, dilation of the cervix. And a peculiar change you will find that external os of the cervix will dilate first. You know that cervix is having 2 os, external os as well as internal os. So external os will dilate first and later on internal os. So during, if you see the lower picture here, some triangular type of picture I have made here at the bottom left hand side. So here this is a triangular type of cone shape of the picture. So here during the first stage of the calving, if you insert your hand through vagina into the cervix, you will find external os will remain dilated while internal os remain closed, and there will be some cone shape appearance. There will be some cone shape appearance. So simply by the per vaginal examination, you can also assess now the first stage of the parturition is going on, and only few tissues are intact, and this will be an indication that in coming few hours or two, certainly there will be addition of the internal os, and then animal can go into the second stage of the parturition. So by per vaginal examination also, one can easily assess what is the stage of calving. Then another condition is initiation of myometrial contractions in this very first stage, because this is the significant activity, that is the initiation of myometrial contractions. And during this myometrial contractions, what's happened? Animals show discomfort. And because of discomfort, sometimes animals show abdominal pain or some colic type of symptoms may be visible in some of the animals. Now the questions come, how this myometrial contractions starts, how this initiates. Generally, the peristalsis, if you see the first figure, try to concentrate on the topmost figure right side here. Generally, the peristalsis activity of the contraction initiates from the apex of the horn. This starts from the apex of the horn, and this is initiated by, this is a hypothetical figure of the urinal having circular muscle fiber and longitudinal muscle fibers. So this contraction is initiated by the circular muscle fiber of the uterine muscles, and then this is propagated by the longitudinal muscle fiber. So contraction is initiated by the circular muscle fiber, synchronized, and then propagated by the longitudinal muscle fiber. So this starts from the apex and then starts going towards the body of the uterus and then goes towards the lower side. So this activity is helpful in pushing of the allantochorion member towards the body of the uterus. So by this way, this contraction initiated. And during this very process also, there is disposition of fetus for the expulsion. Disposition means fetus orient himself in a proper presentation, position and posture. There will be rotation of the fetus on longitudinal axis, because for a normal delivery, this is essential that there should be normal presentation, normal position and normal posture. What is normal presentation? That is anterior longitudinal presentation or posterior longitudinal presentation. Normal position, dorsosacral position. And all the forelimbs, all the limbs, fetal extremities must be in extended position. If in the anterior longitudinal presentation, certainly both the forelimbs must be extended toward birth canal. So it should be in that way. If this is in posterior presentation, certainly both the hind limbs must be extended towards the birth canal. Now, many times the question arises about different forces. Many times this is being asked, what are the different forces responsible for the parturition? So generally this is being said that uterine forces or abdominal forces. So this is an incomplete answer. What are the different forces? There are three different types of forces: uterine contraction or uterine forces, abdominal forces contraction with closed glottis, and diaphragmatic forces. Most potent, certainly this is uterine contraction and abdominal contraction. And why I have written closed glottis, with closed glottis? Whenever there will be abdominal forces or abdominal contraction, the strength of the contraction can only be maximized when there will be closed glottis. You see, sometimes grunting is there, animal closes her glottis and then make the abdominal contraction, make the abdominal forces. to be happen. So this initiates the strength, this increases the strength of abdominal contraction. And simultaneously, diaphragmatic forces also pushes the fetus towards the rear side, towards the pelvic area. So these are the three important forces that is responsible for the expulsion of fetus, for expulsion of fetus: uterine contraction, abdominal contraction, and diaphragmatic forces. Now, how this contractions initiated, what is the amplitude and duration? If you see the contraction, uterine contraction in this first stage, initially the contraction are of low amplitude and of short duration, of low amplitude and short duration. धीरे धीरे होता है, and which occurs 24 to 48 hours before the parturition. It started about 48 hours before the parturition and continue. And this occurs at about every 12 minutes interval and lasts for 15 to 30 seconds. Initially, at every 12 minutes, this contractions occurs, and this lasts for 15 to 20 seconds like this. But as time passes, the frequency and strength of contractions increases. This increases, and this keep on increasing like that until at every this contraction will become continued for 3 to 5 seconds. It continues. It initiates. Initially, this was for a shorter period, but later on, this contraction increases and duration of contraction increase up to 3 to 5 minutes. So there will be more and more vigorous contraction. And this very time, what's happened? Many a times animals goes under the recumbent condition. Many a times animals, you can find that there will be a recumbency, either in the external recumbency and sometimes in the lateral recumbency also. What are the other clinical signs? Animal become restlessness. There will be elevation of the pulse and respiration also. And in few cases, you may observe that there will be 1 degree drop in body temperature. In few cases that can be, particularly this is quite common in heifers also. Now, what's happened? Also during this very first stage, because of myometrial contraction, the allantochorion, if you see this.
Sir.
Please, बताइए.
Sir, 1 degree temperature few cases में sir only heifer बोले थे या sir आप कुछ ऐसे आवाज सुनाए. Heifer के केस में है.
Is most commonly in the heifers, because heifers
yes,
are not very much accustomed for the act of parturition. So this
yes,
is commonly observed in case of heifers. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
But this is not common in all the heifers, but mostly this is being observed in case of heifers. Now, if you see the left diagram here, bottom left diagram, this is the fetus, hypothetical diagram. This is surrounded by the amniotic cavity, and then this is the allantoic cavity. Because of this uterine contraction, what's happened? That this allantochorion, this membrane, which is also known as first water bag. So this is forced towards the cervix and the vagina. And because of this contraction, many a times you will observe that first, if you see the right hand figure, first water bag seems to be hang here. Many times this also breaks during the process of coming outside. Sometimes you may find that this is hanging out from the vulva. This is visible right side. So this is all about the first stage of contraction, first stage of parturition. So what is first stage of parturition? This is uterine, mainly uterine contraction and opening of the birth canal. Now coming to the second stage of parturition, which is abdominal contraction and fetal expulsion. Here more severe abdominal contraction will be there, followed by the expulsion of the fetus, or you can say delivery of the fetus. And this clear cut or marked abdominal contraction is a significant or very peculiar beginning of the second stage of parturition. If you see here, in this very condition, fetus remain in the abdominal cavity and their appendages started moving towards the birth canal. And here, if you see, there is a synchronization between the myometrial contraction and abdominal contraction. Each myometrial contraction is superimposed by 10 to 12 abdominal contractions. Once myometrial contraction is there, that is being immediately followed by the abdominal contraction. So that gives added strength to the uterus for making ease of the expulsion of the fetus. So that is a kind of addition in the expulsion of the fetus. And the amniotic sac, if you see the previous slide, this is inner one. So amniotic sac along with fetal parts now reaches to the pelvic inlet here. Now this reaches to the pelvic inlet, and this is responsible for the gestation of pelvic reflex, a kind of reflex, that is pelvic reflex. And again this pelvic reflex initiates another powerful abdominal contraction. And this powerful abdominal contraction pushes the fetus into the anterior vagina. This pushes the fetus into the anterior vagina. And as a result, second water bag that came out, and that is being visible here from the vagina, and this started coming out if you see the lower picture. So this is in the amnion. Fetal parts are visible in the amnion. And because of presence of this fetal part in the cervix and vagina, again, as I discussed, there is again, you can say, generation of the Ferguson reflex, already just now we have discussed. And again, because of this Ferguson reflex, there will be stronger myometrial contraction, and that will be helpful in the delivery of the calf. So during this second stage of the parturition, what's happened? This allantoion first is ruptures, and fetus moves towards front side, whereas sac remain restricted to the placental attachments. What's happened? There will be attachment of the placenta with the sac. As a result, fetus moves outside towards the vagina. And amnion, this reaches towards the vulva, which in the form of water bag, that generally we call it as a second water bag. And fetal limbs first occupied in the vulva. First this came into the vulva, and generally one limb followed the other limb. It is not like that both the limbs are coming outside the vulva in a parallel way. Generally it is like this. In a boxer's style, if you see the boxer's style, it is like this. One limb followed the other. You will not find that both the limbs during the parturition come simultaneously outside from the vulva. What is the reason? Anyone, any student can tell the reason. What may be the reason? What is the significance? What is the importance that why both the limbs are not coming simultaneously outside? Why this remain either only one limb remain forward, other limb? What is the significance? Why this is so? Anyone can guess the reason? Can tell, please.
Improper space.
Where?
Cervical level.
Okay, good. Any other suggestion by any other student? Any other guess? Any other reason? Convincing reason, if you feel. Okay, he is partially right. Your colleague, your good name? किसने रिप्लाई किया था अभी?
Vipin,
very good. Partially you are correct. Actually, what's happened? Just assume that you have to be entered through a pipeline or in any of the circular ring. And while entry, if you find that that ring is smaller than the chest cavity, so this will not be feasible that you can directly enter. So for that purpose, what you'll do, you will enter in that way. So that first you move one of your portion of your chest through one side followed by the other like this. So once this one limb is further away, this is an indication that fetus will be came out in slightly oblique way. So that reduces the diameter, chest diameter of the fetus. And there will be an easy delivery of the fetus. So while this reaching the fetal, when this occupies the vulva, during this very time, there will be a maximum contraction. Both the abdominal and uterine muscles undergo maximum contraction because maximum expulsive force are required when head and chest are coming, because these are the widest portion of the body. Chest is the widest portion of the body. So many a time this condition, headlock condition or sometimes chest lock condition occurs during the time of dystocia. So during this time, there will be a maximum abdominal forces as well as uterine forces. And that's why many a times this has been observed that after expulsion of head or chest, generally many a times mother may take rest for a while because mother get exhausted by making the maximum contractive forces, by applying the maximum contractive forces. And many a times, if there will be maximum relaxation, certainly it may go down. And once there will be exit of head and chest, generally remaining body and hind limb is easily followed. There should not be though no additional abdominal or uterine cells are required for delivery of hindquarters. That usually follow the head and chest. So this is clear. So now this is completion of the second stage. So in second stage, there will be severe abdominal forces followed by the delivery of the fetus. Now we are coming to the third stage of the parturition, that is known as expulsion of fetal membranes and also a bit expulsion of this involution. So in third stage, after completion of second stage, regular abdominal contractions are mostly stopped, mostly ceases, abdominal contraction. But myometrial contraction, there are two important forces, abdominal forces and myometrial forces. So abdominal forces are mostly ceases, but myometrial contractions, myometrial forces, this continues, this persists, but with a low amplitude and high frequency, like this, continuously, this is forcing like this. And this will be very much helpful in dehiscence of placenta, in expulsion of placenta. This is the helpful in separation of placenta, separation of both the junctions in the uterus. This will be helpful in session. Now, what are the major events takes place during the expulsion of the fetal membranes? During the expulsion, there will be maturational changes. What are the maturational changes in the placentums? Collagenization of the placentums, collagen tissue formation, flattening and loss of maternal crypt epithelium, and there will be increased infiltration and activity of leukocytes. These are the maturational changes that take place at that particular placental level. Then there will be shrinkage of fetal villi. How? There will be sudden loss of turgidity due to escape of blood from the fetal side to the placenta, because